Time once again for the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. With you as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network. My name is, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. I almost forgot Sam right there from the columnist for the Kansas City Star. Sam McDowell. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. Time to talk some Chiefs football. Another loss as they feast on Thanksgiving, falling to 500. Where is our level of concern? Is it time to admit this team just isn't good? We'll talk about where we think this club is right now. Can the Chiefs win with this offensive line? What are the thoughts on the receivers after we saw what were some big-time athletes in CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens operate against the Chiefs? How do they compare to the Kansas City Chiefs wideouts? Thoughts on Andy Reid's fourth down decisions. Did Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson get exposed in this game? No sacks 2 straight weeks. The defensive line, the front, not getting there. How about the officiating? A lot of people talking about that. How much of a factor was it? We're talking about it right here, right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Off and running. The Chiefs were off and running against the Dallas Cowboys, leading in the game early, looking very impressive. Offense going up and down the field, and then it all started to come crashing down. Jeff, let's start there. What do you think of these Chiefs now after they've fallen yet again back to 500?
The same thing I thought before. I mean, they've got a rough road to go. They are not as good as we thought they were. Their issues are deeper than we sometimes are willing to accept. This is not a team that is going to be bailed out just because they've got the best quarterback in the world. At some point, and I've said this before, it's okay to say they're just not that good. I mean, they're still a solid team. They still have moments when they really impress you, but defensively, they're becoming a mess. Offensively, they're taking on water with injuries. Once again, you're seeing some of their best playmakers not make plays in the clutch, and I'm beginning to think that, again, that the amount of playmakers, reliable playmakers, is not what we thought. So they're about where they should be in my mind from what I've seen over the course of this year.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it, Sam. There are still some underlying numbers that say, oh, yeah, this team's really good. At moments, they look really good, like they did early in that game, moving down the field. But at the end of the day, they don't seem to be able to put 4 quarters together. They certainly can't handle taking on any water to injuries. The offensive line getting banged up became a real problem. Where do you sit on what this team is right now?
Yeah, I mean, they inexplicably look like a team that's trying to learn how to win football games. I mean, they sort of look like, the team that is in like a second year of a rebuild that's trying to turn that corner and can't do it. I mean, for 12 weeks, this team has shown us who they are, and it's been hard to believe them. And I think it's just time we believe that they're a team that can't close out games and a team that can't come back in games. And the reason that's hard to believe is like that's the defining characteristic trait of this team for the last 6 years. And it's hard to believe you could just suddenly lose it with a snap of a finger. I mean, they've blown 3 fourth quarter leads in 52 days. They went 738 days without blowing one, and they've done it 3 times in 52 days. And their other 3 losses, they had a possession with a chance to at least tie the game in the fourth quarter, if not take a lead. So like you're wondering, How can you have a ridiculous point margin and go 6-6? How can you lead the entire NFL in yards per drive and be 6-6? How can you have a top 10 offense and top 10 defense and be 6-6? It's when you don't make plays when the game's on the line. It's when you take a lead in Dallas and you give up 171 yards for the rest of the fourth quarter. This team has just absolutely collapsed in the biggest moments of the game. And like I said, it's been hard for me to believe that's who they are, as opposed to it being an outlier, because they've been the opposite of this for so long. But it's 12 weeks now. This is who this team is.
Was this loss any different than any of the others, Jeff, or was it just same old, or was there something new about this, some new way to lose a game that you were very much a part of?
I wouldn't say much anything. Obviously, the secondary got hit pretty hard, but I mean, they played some really good receivers, and we'll talk about that later in the show. But to me, it was this team's success has always been about their stars playing at a high level, and you look at the number of one-score games they played throughout the last 4 years. It's astonishing we haven't talked more about this, because they played 12 last year, they played 14 the year before that, and they played 13 in 2022. So they've always been playing one-score games. The difference is that Travis Kelce is going 12 for 150 and 3 touchdowns, and Chris Jones is getting 2 or 3 sacks, and Mahomes is making some big plays. That stuff has always obscured the things that are happening now. They were always making penalties. They always had moments where guys were dropping big passes, but the stars were able to erase all that stuff. And now what happens? Chris Jones jumps out of a gap. The guy runs 40 yards for a touchdown. Travis Kelce's got a chance to make a big catch. I know it was nullified by a penalty. He drops it. Rashee Rice drops a big catch. All these things have been part of their DNA. It's just that their stars have been able to make up for that. And now you're seeing their stars not do it.
Yeah, it is. Sam, another loss and another close loss, as Jeff put it. But did you find anything new in the way that this one went about? Or we'll talk about Trent McDuffie. That was new to me, the way he got toasted around a little bit in this one. But anything drastically different in how this one's going, or no? Just we're validating, even though there's a lot of good metrics. They're 500.
Yeah, I do think there were some new things. I mean, they're basically like the rest of our rundown, so I'm not going to get too much into them. But yeah, I mean, the cornerbacks were different. Andy Reid has become passive again on fourth down. But to me, that's indicative of a larger worry. Like, if you had one thing to solve, I think you could work towards it. Last year was left tackle. Left tackle is a major problem. So what they do, they revamped their offense to throw short. They threw short and quick and said, we can't play with this situation at left tackle and expect to be able to drop back deep into the pocket. They adjusted. When you have this thing going wrong in this game, and this thing going wrong in this game, that's why I say it's more indicative of this. In my post-game column, I compared it to like a deer coming out of the womb and trying to learn how to walk for the first time. And it's like, it doesn't work coming out. And this team has operated as like the 12-point buck for 5 years now in those situations. And so when you're trying to learn how to put this foot in front of the other, I think it's more worrisome that I got to solve this. Oh, but now this pops up. And now I solve this, but now this pops up. That they can't seem to shoot straight with getting everything to work in sync at one time in the fourth quarter in these close games. No,
they can't. They're 1-5 on the road. They don't win on the road. 1-6 in one-score games, 1-3. Jeff, you pointed this out in their last 4 versus playoff contenders. The road thing is totally new. Right? Like, why is the road suddenly become a problem for them? They were, in fact, for a number of years, they would be better on the road, Jeff, than they were at home. And now they seem to be completely inept when they're on the road.
Well, part of that is, I think, defense travels, and defense is not working for this team. So they're not bringing a great defense on the road with them. They're bringing an ordinary defense. So when teams have the opportunity to check what Spagnuolo's throwing at them, as far as blitzes, they can communicate that stuff now. When you go back to the AFC Championship game, and Buffalo had a hard time communicating, and it cost them in some big moments in that game. When you're in your own place and you're seeing that stuff, you can get guys in the right spot, you can get the right play called, and you can get after it. I think that obviously penalties are affecting the offensive line on the road. I think that's a part of it as well. We've got Jawan Taylor's always been a penalty problem, but you're seeing more of this happen. You're seeing it affect Josh Simmons. And again, when you can't hit home run plays, when everything you do is 11 plays, 12 plays, 13 plays. You're grinding it out. Like at some point, it's going to get harder to take a crowd out of the game. You hit a home run, and all of a sudden the crowd shuts up. And so I think those are the big factors I see as far as what's happening to them on the road.
Yeah, I think, I asked Andy Reid, he says after each one of these losses, we got a couple of things we got to clean up. So, you mentioned that a couple of times, like, is it the same couple of things that you're still trying to clean up, or are you chasing something new? And to me, and then he rattled off about 5 different things, one of which was getting the opposition off the field on third down. Well, that's not a cleanup thing. That's a talent/scheme thing. That is the overall point of what you're trying to do on defense. You don't just clean up, we can't stop the other team, right? There's 900 things that go into that one. So I thought that was a kind of a telling answer that, he keeps talking about kind of cleaning things up, but put to it about what do you got to clean up? He rattled off a bunch of things. And I think that's the problem is it isn't just a couple of things, kind of what you talked about earlier, Sam. There's, if you did know that, like, well, if we could just get Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore to quit dropping the ball or take them off the field, well, that would be like, I don't see the solution. All the big boys are out there and they're just not getting it done.
Well, I mean, the big boys aren't going to be out there on Sunday. So, I mean, I think the job gets more difficult than that. I know we've got penalties on our rundown tonight, and I'll get into it. But I do think that is the most glaring thing. And I also think when Andy Reid mentions that, because I went back and looked at all the times he used the phrase cleanup this year, and man, is it a lot. And most of the time he references penalties when he says it. The Monday after they lost to the Broncos, he said it 4 times. And the Wednesday after they lost to the Broncos, he said it 4 more. 8 times in 2 media sessions did he mention that they had to clean stuff up. And I think it's pretty clear he's referring to penalties, which is, as much as people think they got hosed in this game, that doesn't apply to the other games. That is stuff that is within their control that they can clean up.
Yeah. So we all agree that they've got issues. Now the question becomes, are they issues that they can solve and make the playoffs? We will talk about that when we come back after you hear from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot.
This episode of Red, Gold, and Bold is brought to you by Frontier Justice, where freedom is a lifestyle grounded in safety, responsibility, and respect. With locations in Lee Summit, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, and Jenks, Oklahoma, Frontier Justice offers firearms retail, a premier indoor shooting range, and training all under one roof. Whether you're new to shooting or a seasoned pro, you'll find expert staff, top-tier gear, and a strong sense of community. Faith, family, freedom. That's what Frontier Justice stands for. Visit frontier-justice.com to learn more.
All right, let's talk about making the playoffs. Sam, we'll start with you. I know you kind of touched on this a little bit when we were talking during the radio show, but the percentages are finally below 50% on this team making the playoffs. Where's your level of confidence that the Chiefs are going to the postseason?
Yeah, I think pretty similar to where the models are at. I think ESPN's got it at 41%. PFF's model has it at 41%. I mean, I guess I'd say slightly higher. But look, if they go 5-0, they're in. And I know that's not mathematically a certainty, but they're going to make it if they go 5-0. I think when you go through the models and you pick them to go 5-0, it computes out like 99+% that they'll make it if they go 5-0. But what have we seen from this team this year that makes us believe they're going to go 5-0? Why are they going to? Why are they going to beat the Texans on Sunday? Why are they going to beat the Broncos when they see them again? Like, especially without their tackles, like they have not provided the evidence yet this year that they can go 5-0. And it goes back to what I said at the open, to where a lot of the belief you might have, you've got to trace back before this year started for the rationale to have that belief, because this team has not provided us that belief yet. It could happen. That, like, they're talented enough. The metrics are still there to make it possible. They'll be favored in all 5 games. Like, they can go 5-0, but they were favored against the Cowboys. They were favored against the Broncos. I mean, they've been favored in a lot of these games, and they've lost a lot of them.
Well, what are you feeling for a record right now in the end, Jeff, with considering what they have left to go through? Houston, the Chargers, at Tennessee, Denver, at Las Vegas. What are you feeling that results in?
Either 10-7 or 9-8. Like, I don't see, like I'm with Sam, I don't see them winning 5 straight games. If you had closed your eyes and never seen this team play at all in the last 7 years, and you saw their numbers, you saw the 1-5 on the road, 1-6 in close games, you'd be like, there's no way I'd pick that team to win 5 games. And that's how I see it. Now the question is, can they win 3 or 4 with what's left? And no matter what you think of Denver and Bo Nix, no matter what you think of the Chargers and their offensive line situation, those teams have better records, and those teams have beaten the Chiefs already this year, and did it in fairly impressive fashion. Both teams played well in those games. They're not pretenders, and so that's a factor. And when you start thinking about, as Sam said, their offensive line situation, it gets really scary, because history has also shown us that when this team doesn't have quality offensive line in place for Patrick Mahomes, it gets ugly fast, especially against teams that can rush the passer and play good defense, which all 3 of those teams can do. So I think it's, at best case scenario, is 10-7, and I don't know who they beat among Houston, Denver, and the Chargers to get there, but I think they're more likely a 9-8 team. I think Houston and Denver beats them. Yeah,
it's one of the things we talked about earlier today as well. Like 9-8 is more likely to me than the 11-6 is, right? Like, that's where I'm at now. I think 10-7 is where they're going to finish, but I'm much more of the belief that they will find a way to lose an extra game than they will find a way to win all of them. And for the point you made, Sam, like, why would you say that now with 12 games, in, why would you say they'll turn in the right direction? They have not reached Christmas. It was Christmas when it all came together 2 years ago. That's what I keep hearing from fans. But that's just
no
like
margin for error. The margin for error is gone.
Well, the margin for error is gone. And I think, when people cite me that, I'm like, okay, but what's the football reason? Yeah. It's not like, Josh Simmons is coming back. I think we're going to learn that Josh Simmons is not coming back. Right. And that is a giant problem. Let me tell you this, Wanya Morris against the Broncos is a loss. Wanya Morris in a playoff game is a loss. Wanya Morris against the Texans is probably a loss. Yeah. That's where you're going, right, Sam?
Yeah. And I think there's another piece of this that I was thinking about tonight, is that the Chiefs, the reason they're 6-6 is they haven't responded to adversity all year. They haven't responded to pressure all year. Where here they are with more pressure than they've had all year, facing more adversity than they have all year. Like, these are the exact situations in game that they've been terrible in their response. So, like, why do we have the belief that this team has that element within them to say, okay, backs against the wall, now we're going to come out and play? Your backs have been against the wall in the fourth quarter 7 times this year. You're 1-6 in those opportunities. So imagine, like, if they get into that situation again on Sunday against the Texans, which is entirely possible, all the pressure in the world is going to be on the Chiefs. And I understand the Texans are fighting for the playoffs too, but the Kansas City Chiefs led by Patrick Mahomes missing the playoffs is different than the Houston Texans missing the playoffs. And I think they'll feel that in the fourth quarter of a tight game.
Jeff, I'm not sure they're starting to believe it. Like, a lot of people are getting, there's a lot of run with Andy Reid's tickle your tonsils comment, which for the life of me, I don't know where that came from and why he thought that was going to be a good idea. But hidden in that part of the message was that I almost took that as he's saying, like, yeah, we're probably not going anywhere, but if you think you're going to come in here and just get a win because we're done, don't think that way, because we're going to give you a fight. Like, it sounded to me almost like, we can still punch you in the mouth. It didn't sound like a guy that's trying to fix the plan to win a championship. It seemed almost like a concession that we're still a tough out, even though we're not going to win, right? Am I reading too much into that?
No, I read it the same way. To me, it was the first kind of real worry within the organization. I've looked at Patrick Mahomes' expressions the last couple times they played when they beat the Colts, when he walked off the field with that really stone-faced look, and after this game. And you can tell players and coaches know. They know what they're dealing with over there, and they see the same problems, and they're trying to figure out the same solutions. And at some point, I think Andy Reid has always been able to fall back on, hey, we'll keep things stable. We're not going to, get after each other, behind closed doors. Everything's positive. And, that statement told me that he's well aware of where they are and what they're facing and what one more loss will mean to them. That this team is built to win Super Bowls. It's not built to be having these conversations. And so, I think there's legitimate concern. And I'm with you. I don't know what he meant by that line, but I can promise you he probably will never, ever utter it again, given the run it's got on talk radio.
Sam, you want to try to explain what
No,
that meant?
no, I'm not going to explain that. No. Everyone should spend some time Googling, see what comes up.
Yeah, or you shouldn't. Maybe you shouldn't do it at work. I'll say that. You could find some interesting things. I'm guessing. Maybe I'm taking it the wrong way. Can they win with this offensive line? Sam, we've talked a little bit about Wanya Morris, but Josh Simmons broken wrist. Trey Smith seems to be like he's not going to be healthy at any time this year. We're dealing with a sprained ankle. Juwan Taylor, tricep strain. Is this all like what can you do with this offensive line?
Well, Juwan Taylor's about like anytime he misses, he's going to get the best review he's ever had in Kansas City. Because I think people are going to realize that maybe they could have lived with some of the penalties considering he can actually pass protect. I'm telling you that the tape of that offensive line in the second half of the third quarter and the fourth quarter, it's as bad as anything I saw last year because you're using last year's guys at times in that game. And the tackles are the biggest deal. And I've talked about that more than anyone, that Patrick Mahomes deals with pressure from the inside better than he does on the outside. But when that pressure is getting there in less than a second from the inside, that changes that equation. And that Mike Caliendo tape is terrible. I don't know how Hunter Norzad could be worse than at least what Mike Caliendo did against Dallas. Now, he had a tough assignment. It's Quinnen Williams. He's going in mid-game, but they're about to face a team that gets pressure with 4. And then Derek Stingley doesn't even need help on one side of the field. That's the equation that the Texans defense is coming. And so when you ask the concern level of that against this team this weekend, I mean, it's a red alert situation putting out 3 backups against that team.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say, I remember at the start of this year, Sam saying there's no way that offensive line, that left tackle situation could look as bad as it did last year. And it's exactly about to happen. It is. Well,
first of all, you are correct, but I was pointing out that Jalen Moore could not be worse than what they had, and Josh Simmons could not be worse.
I'm giving you a hard time.
But you are right. The one part of the equation is throw last year's guy in there.
That's it.
Unless you run out last year's line.
That's right. That's why Soren was praying for Wanya Morris not to be on this roster, just to have another reason to believe. But I agree. I think I don't know how they're going to be able to move the ball against a defense like that. When you saw last year in the playoffs, they couldn't do it. And they had probably a better situation. And if anybody saw that Buffalo game, a lot of people did, when Josh Allen, I've had people ask me, how could they deal with Buffalo? How could Buffalo not deal with them? And it's like, because Texans are really good at what they do. And they can make amazing quarterbacks look really bad. And I'm sure they'll have a great game plan, but I just don't see where after what we watched the last 4 weeks where they're going to be able to have the firepower to keep those guys off him all game long.
Yeah. How about the receivers, Sam? I mean, we saw CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, and I'll bring up Pickens in the sense that, he was an option. Obviously, the Steelers were shopping him, and you would have had to have topped like a third, and then it was really a little less than a third that the Cowboys gave up because they moved up in the 6th from the 7th. It was part of the swap as well. So the Chiefs would have had to have given at least their full third, maybe even more than that. But it looks like, probably not a second. Like when you see that and you see what the Chiefs have done receiver wise, I mean, we're talking about the Chiefs wideouts on a day that Rashee Rice has 8 catches for 92 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's not like they were devoid of talent at wideout. But just watching how dominant the Cowboys receivers were. Let's start with George Pickens. Did the Chiefs miss an opportunity and going out and bringing him on, baggage and all, because to this point it's worked? in Dallas, which is as much of a pressure cooker as you can find.
Yeah, I think that was too much of an unknown going to the offseason. I mean, Mike Tomlin has dealt with a lot of personalities. And for Mike Tomlin to want to get rid of a personality out of his room, because there was no denying the talent at that point. And let's keep in mind the performance that George Pickens put on the Chiefs at Christmas last year. I mean, there were players who thought that he quit in that game, and he cost an interception because he just decided not to run a route in that game. So I don't think that's the type of guy that you want to bring in. I mean, having said that, like, he obviously made an impact on the game. I will say he was targeted 13 times to get the 88 yards, still makes an impact. But it goes back to what I had said last week with Jeff and Steve, is the fact that the Cowboys have an easy button when the play doesn't materialize in the way they want it to. And it's, you've got players who can catch contested passes in a way that the Chiefs do not. And on 3rd and long, when the Chiefs brought blitz after blitz after blitz, the Cowboys' solution was to use the easy button. Their first 6 3rd and longs for at least 7 yards, they completed 6 passes. 5 of them went for first downs. And of those first downs, CeeDee Lamb caught 4 and George Pickens caught another. Like, it was just, it's like I said, it's the easy button. When I see an extra rusher, what am I going to do? I'm going to go one-on-one right here. And that's what the Cowboys could do. And the Chiefs, Rashee Rice is a very good wide receiver. That's not who he is, though. And Patrick Mahomes really hasn't had that guy since he's been in Kansas City at all.
You want to tell me, Jeff, what you thought was going on in the mind of Xavier Worthy when Patrick Mahomes evades the rush twice, slings one sidearm down the field, and Curtis took a shot of it on the TV screen. There's nobody within 15 yards of him in any direction, and he's 20 yards from the end zone, and he's clocked as the fastest man in the history of the combine in the 40-yard dash, and he does not get in the end zone. Like, I bring this up as just like how uninstinctual he is, how he just is, like, where Patrick Mahomes has that. I said this to Trent Green. Patrick Mahomes seemingly knows, like, even what aisle every vendor is in the stadium, in addition to where everybody is on the field, where they're going, where the football can be dropped in. It's this incredible spatial awareness. Xavier Worthy has none of it. I mean, like, I don't understand when you see a guy who can't get in the end zone in that situation, why you would think he's running the right route all the time, or like on an option route, he's going to read it the right way. I continue to think that part of the holdup is I don't know that he sees the field the way he needs to see the field in this offense. But, like, you know, how far apart are the two receiving cores in your mind and what we saw in this game?
Oh, man. I mean, it's like it's like in Star Wars where you can hit that hyperspace button and you can kind of go from like that level of apart. You got to like hit some kind of turbo button and go through some kind of time loop to get to where the Cowboys are compared to where the Chiefs guys are. And it's the Chiefs guys have to be schemed up. And we've talked about that for a long time there. Now, let me amend that. They want to scheme them up. I don't know if they can do more than what they're being asked to do, but I do know their offense relies heavily on Andy dialing up plays for these guys. And Sam's right. I mean, when you have dudes just go out there and I'm throwing you the football, get open. I don't care if that guy's sitting inside. You're going to run a slant and you're going to get open, and you do it 3-4 times. That tells you that the guy on their team is pretty good. And so, yeah, and it's not just those guys, to be honest with you. It's the ability to run the football effectively. I feel like that 40-yard touchdown run by Davis was big for them. The Javonte Williams presence is big for them. Jake Ferguson had a big catch in the end zone that didn't become a touchdown, but it was a great catch. And so when you have all these weapons on the outside and you have that other stuff going for you, it makes it even harder to take it away. And so I think they've got a great thing going. And I think you're right. I think the Chiefs have to start realizing that it's not just about trying to find a guy who fits what you want your offense to be. It's about finding a guy who can make a play no matter what's going on. And I say all the time, like, how many guys have left this team, not just at receiver, but overall, and been great players elsewhere? Not many, because they come here and they know how they want to use them, and it's great here, but the talent level is not what it is in other places around the league. And I feel like there's a lot of teams that have 2 great receivers, and this team doesn't want to have that.
Yeah, I think that the type of receiver is an interesting point because, you know, ahead of this game, I ended up watching Patrick Mahomes' first game ever at that stadium, which was with Texas Tech against Baylor. They lose 48-46. I actually thought after the game, I wonder if that felt similar. Like he threw 6 touchdowns, 598 yards, and they lost the game. And I wondered if maybe he had a similar feeling walking off the field on Thursday. But what stands out to me is how many contested passes he throws in that game. Like he's totally comfortable throwing in to traffic in the game. And like I watched him play in the NFL, and that's not who he is. He is. I mean, I still am going to have him as the best quarterback in the league when we do our quarterback tiers next year. But he's not a guy that throws the ball up, even deep. Like he's not typically comfortable doing that. And when you see him do it so frequently in college and rely on it, depend on it, it does lend credibility to what Jeff's saying about this is a scheme-related thing, about the types of receivers that they have, and that's why he's not doing it, as opposed to the fact that, hey, this just isn't the way I want to play quarterback.
Yeah, and as good as, and I think Rashee Rice is obviously the most talented guy. He can do the most there, but had a critical drop in this game, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
You know, and drops happen. I mean, I think sometimes, you know, they get magnified when it's late in the game in a play that you got to have, and they hurt more. And it's I'm not excusing it or apologizing for it, but you know, it just, you know, at that's the moment that the big time receiver makes the play. Or you've made enough plays beforehand that it doesn't come down to where you have to have that, right? And that's
and I think the bigger Xavier Worthy play actually, and Soren, I think I mentioned this to you off air, but the Chiefs get a free play. Patrick Mahomes, to your point on his instinct, recognizes immediately, this is my guy going deep, so why not take the chance there with the free play? And Xavier Worthy just seems to have borderline checked out of the play, thinking, well, it's a free play, no big deal. And it's like, it's a free play. Take advantage of it. Like, make something more out of it. And instead, he's like getting ready to catch a deep ball into his belly rather than fighting for a ball. And that goes into what you're saying, I think, even more so than the other play about just the instincts of your surroundings. It's like, go make a play.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing too about that. You know, so we're all piling on Xavier Worthy at the moment. Is
get on the pile,
Jeff.
Right. Yeah. Come on.
Yeah. 2 things about him. One, I've never seen him as being an elusive runner, and so this whole offense is about getting the ball, getting players the ball in space and let them do. He's not Tyreek Hill in that regard, and so the speed he has becomes less potent if he doesn't know how to use it in a way that, you know, he has no shake or wiggle to him. He's very straight line in how he runs. But the bigger point I wanted to make is that, and they showed us a lot with how they handled Kadarius Toney, and this desire to stick with the guy because you see all these qualities and you want to pull it out of him. And I see a lot of that with the situation we're talking about now, which is they see what these guys can be in their minds, but they're unwilling to accept, well, maybe that could hurt us in some way. Maybe we need them to be more. Maybe we need somebody else or a different type of player who can come in here and create things that we just can't scheme up. You know, it's like having a great basketball player who can go one-on-one and all you want him to do is just run your motion offense and pass and cut. It's like you have to have guys, I think especially in this league, the guys I see week in and week out who are having dynamic offenses, they have run games, but their receivers are really dynamic. They throw them the ball and things happen with it. I feel like that doesn't happen with this team very often right now. It's certainly not down the field.
Yeah. Patrick Mahomes ran, I think it was a 4.77 40. But his football speed is more like 4.5, right? Like, because of his instincts, when to take off, everything like that. 4.18 or 4.19 or whatever it was Xavier Worthy ran, his football speed in pads and playing the game is like 4.5. Like the speed does not translate into production. And that's what you thought, is that, well, Andy Reid will scheme him to where he just needs to run and get there. But I mean, he's thrown off his routes off just a couple of fingers. You know, it will screw up the timing in a route because he can't run through it. And I'm going to tell you, like, as much as everyone's like, oh, DK Metcalf, they took McCole Hardman over DK Metcalf. Xavier Worthy over Ladd McConkey is going to be, I think, as big or bigger of a mistake for this franchise. And it's clear that there is a type that they've been looking for. There's no doubt. What you hoped was Xavier Worthy was what McCole Hardman wasn't. Even faster, but a complete wide receiver. He's not. And they keep drafting similar type guys. They acquired Kadarius Toney. Same thing. Not a wide receiver. Just an athlete that they like in the concept of getting the ball in his hands in open space. And at some point, whether that's Andy Reid saying this is the guy I need for my system, or that's Brett Veach saying, this is the guy that will fit for you, somebody needs to change their thinking and be looking for more of the all-around guy. Because Rashee Rice is the guy they took that's not their type, and he's the best one they've got.
Yeah.
So,
well, and how many guys around the league who were Pro Bowl, All-Pro guys who had whatever limitation you want to put on them that the Chiefs would never touch are phenomenal players. Whether it's a Puka Nacua or an Amon-Ra St. Brown, like A.J. Brown was a second-round pick. There's a lot of guys out there who weren't first-round, top 10 picks who are killing it in this league. And for whatever reason, those guys don't fit what they want to have.
And what's so funny is the roots of where Andy Reid came from, those are the guys they would have taken.
Yep.
Like those are West Coast receivers,
Yep.
right? The guy that's bigger, physical. Those are the guys that Bill Walsh and Mike Holmgren were always looking for. And Andy Reid somewhere along the line has morphed into getting, the guys that the Don Coryell, system, just pure speed was looking for. And I don't know where that happened along the way. It doesn't make sense to me in what they did. All right, we want to get into the fourth down decisions. They weren't exactly fantastic. We'll do it after you hear from our friends at Frontier Justice.
This episode of Red, Gold, and Bold is brought to you by Frontier Justice, where freedom is a lifestyle grounded in safety, responsibility, and respect. With locations in Lee Summit, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, and Jenks, Oklahoma, Frontier Justice offers firearms retail, a premier indoor shooting range, and training all under one roof. Whether you're new to shooting or a seasoned pro, you'll find expert staff, top-tier gear, and a strong sense of community. Faith, family, freedom. That's what Frontier Justice stands for. Visit frontier-justice.com to learn more.
Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, let's get into fourth down. Andy Reid was 3 for 3 on fourth down. So in some ways, I'm sure that they sit there and they look at it and say, boy, we were pretty good on fourth down. How about our decisions? But there were multiple opportunities to go for it in the second half, Jeff, where they punted. They punted from the Dallas side of the field. And what I think is the most telling is the best possible outcome came from those punts. They pinned them down inside the 5-yard line, and it didn't work. Right? Like Andy Reid was so aggressive early. There are still moments where he's going for it, but those were critical times when the offense was having trouble stopping Dallas. The defense was having trouble stopping Dallas, and the offense wasn't really clicking, and he walked away from those opportunities. What did you think of his fourth down decisions?
Well, he went for it twice, right? And they
He was 3 for 3, wasn't he? Overall, early in the game.
3 times, yeah. They actually on the 4th and 4, they went for it on 4th and 1, I think, right?
Two 4th and 1s in the first 3 quarters,
The one to Wiley, right?
Two touchdowns, yeah.
And so I think both the ones that I remember being, questionable or debatable were the ones in the third quarter when it was 17-14. And I generally don't. I mean, you guys are heavier on the fourth down stuff than I am. I'm more of a feel person when it comes to that stuff. I think it's different when you're on the goal line or inside a 10-yard line, whatever. You're in a place where you feel like you have a chance to score and get points. I always say that people love going for it on fourth down until they don't get it and they don't realize what's going to happen on the flip side of that. Now, if he doesn't get those 4th and 4, 4th and 5 situations, you're giving Dallas a ball with a short field. Now this game might get away from you. And so I think that's what he was thinking when he decided not to do it. And for better or for worse, he's got a lot of trust in Steve Spagnuolo. And I think he runs that team with the standpoint of like Steve Spagnuolo is like the second head coach. Like he's running the defense. You do your thing. And so if he thinks Spagnuolo can get it done, a week earlier, Spagnuolo's defense got it done against the Colts. I'm sure that goes into his thinking. I'm sure in a short week, you're probably thinking, how many play calls do I have that I trust here? Maybe, if you're at home, you might feel differently about it. There's a lot of factors that go into it. And I think the fact that I think Mahomes limped off the field on the first one, the 4th and 4. I remember he was upset about the offensive pass interference call on Xavier Worthy, and Tony Romo made a comment about it. And so maybe that's in your mind too, of like, do I want to run a 4th down play here with my quarterback? I don't know if he's completely healthy. So I give him some grace there, but I also can accept the argument that the way they're playing these days, you probably got to take every chance you can get to try to score points.
Well, I think you're in the get it right business. They didn't get it right this time. It worked out. I think this is Sam would say, process over results, right? Like the results came through with the Colts. The process was still wrong. They didn't go for it at times against the Colts, and the defense bailed them out. And I think he was armed with that. And he's like, well, it worked last week. It'll work this week. But if you're going to sit back and talk about, well, a lot of things go into it. Yes, there's all the analytics. I talked with Frazier beforehand, and we've gone through all that kind of stuff. But there's still the feel of the game. Well, your feel of the game was wrong. Like, then you need to admit that, like, hey, I went with my gut and my gut was wrong, right? Like, and that's what I don't know that's there, Sam, is the, I do get it. It worked the week before, but the Colts offense had really kind of stalled at that point. You had reason to believe that you could get a stop. You were getting worked on defense. I don't know what would make you think that suddenly the 3-and-out fest that the Colts became. I mean, I said this to some people on vacation. I said, I think this may be the worst thing that could have happened to the Chiefs, because I think it may empower them to stop going for it on 4th down, and I think they need to do it more. And look, I'm not going to slap myself on the back and say that this is right for the rest of the way, but it certainly looks like that's what happened in this game.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at, I look at this from a pure probability standpoint, and both of them have consequences. I mean, the argument that, hey, I've got faith in the defense that they're going to get a stop. So you're saying you don't have the faith in the offense then at that point. And this was, by the way, a totally offensive-driven game. And, I mean, the Chiefs had crossed midfield on every single drive at that point. They were not going 3-and-out on these drives, and your defense was getting killed on 3rd down in the game. I mean, the 4th and 4 that he didn't go for, I think, is the most cowardly punt he's had in his Chiefs tenure. And I, for the life of me, cannot figure that one out. When I saw Matt Araiza trotted out on the field, I was looking for Harrison Butker, because I thought it's indoors. He must think this isn't Harrison Butker's field goal range to kick a 62-yarder here. And I was stunned to find out that instead he was kicking a field goal on 4th and 4. I mean, the probability models are off the charts there to go for it. And I know even the non-believers in analytics have a tough time going by those charts over the feel of the game, over the other factors that Jeff mentioned. But this isn't a marginal. Neither one of those decisions were marginally go for it. They were off the charts. This is obvious. You need to go for this. And I continue to go back to the Buffalo game. And this is why I preach process over results. When they went for it in the first half against Buffalo on 4th and 3 and did not get it, it was the right process. It was the wrong result. I still applauded the decision. It was the right process. And since then, he's stopped doing this on other than goal-to-go situations. He's recognized that goal-to-go with the new kickoff rule, getting the ball at the 35-yard line, you need to be more aggressive. You're giving up field position when you choose to kick the field goal. But in the other parts of the field all year long, he's been aggressive. He didn't get it against Buffalo, and he's completely dialed it back the other way since. And I don't think that's coincidental. And that, to me, whatever you think the process should be, it's results driven, and I think it needs to be process driven.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this one he failed. And
well, hold on, time. Do you think that Mahomes is banged up in that situation? He should still go for it.
I think if he can play that snap, then you go for it.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but you're seeing him limp off as a head coach, and now your play clock's running, and you got to decide: is he okay to run it? And I got to call a play, like time's ticking. I mean, I just think.
I think I trust my quarterback. Go ahead, Jeff. You're right. That absolutely needs to be factored in.
Sure.
I mean, but I asked Andy about this after the game twice, and that wasn't mentioned as part of his calculus at all. His calculus was that he thought the defense was in a good spot, and he finishes it by almost with the wink saying, "Put that on me." And it's like, I didn't have anyone else to put that on. Like, that's where it's going. You made the decision there to punt the ball twice, and look, the analytic to your point on this, Jeff, I think is going to be most valid in the sense if it's 3-0, those models are going to say the same thing. Yeah. And your point in the situation is they should not. But that's why the dial should be turned up even more, because this was totally an offensive game. You couldn't get a stop. The only way they could stop you was penalties at that point. Yes, it's one play. The risk is you don't get it, that they could go down the field. They were going down the field anyway.
Yeah.
In that game.
Yeah.
Two things that jump at me. One, NFL coaches oftentimes would prefer to just elongate the loss than go for the win, right? They are, well, if we don't get it there, then they get the ball and it's game over. Okay, so what, you bled to death slower, right? As opposed to just cutting the head off. Like you have to, like Sam being a poker player, much more so than me these days, but he gets this part of it. It's, there's a time where you have pocket aces that, yes, somebody else might beat you, but the math says this is it, jam. All the chips go in. It's your chance to double up. You don't get an opportunity like this. It might be the end of the tournament for you, but you will not get another opportunity better than this. So you have to make the play and risk losing it all to give yourself the best chance to win. And what he did was like, well, let's just stay in the fight. Basically, you're hoping that somebody will drop the ball near their own end zone and you can fall on it. That becomes ultimately what your rationale is. There was no reason to think that suddenly Dallas wasn't going to move the ball and suddenly you were going to stop them.
But you're saying that you thought at that point in the game, 17-14, that they were going to lose.
I think at that point in the game, it started to look like
lose.
There are issues. Yes, like
I didn't feel that way. So
they were more likely to, statistically more likely to lose once they punted the ball. To me, this is also reflective of what the Chiefs have done this year, because it's a team that has cowered coward's the wrong. It's a team that has collapsed in the big moments this year. Andy Reid shied away from the big moment. He did not want a big moment to happen at that point in the game, and they needed a big moment to happen in that game. Their odds were better to win by implementing a big moment and saying, you know what, this play is going to matter a lot more than I'd like it to, but that's part of the game.
Yeah, he was 7-7 with Washington when he went for 4th and goal, right? Wasn't that where it was, or was it 14-7? I can't remember.
Yeah, and that's on the goal line.
That is on the goal line. I agree, but there are.
He's done he did it on his own half of the field a lot this year until. I wish I still had that page pulled up.
I think it was a clear moment in the game, and I also would say, when else? Like, what more do you need to go for it? Right? Like, there's tons of data that says this is it. This is the moment. Your chances of winning by possessing the ball into their 30s is way better than them possessing the ball at their own 4, which is what they got. They got literally the best case scenario, and it still didn't work. Right? That's what's so damning on it. I think the other thing it says is, all right, so where are you as an offense that you don't have the play to go get 4 yards or 5 yards?
Well, that's also what I said about that's a short week thing. I think if you've got a full week to prepare, you probably have more plays that you like. I think that in a short week, you're limited in what you can call.
That is something we have not discussed. That is a new. You are right. That is a new variable that's in there, and maybe there's just so much you got on the play sheet. I mean, I do think the part that gets overlooked by the go for it community is, well, what do you got that you're going to call?
Yeah,
and to me, he has kind of, to go back to the penalty thing. He said, you talked about, well, on the penalties, and when it gets called back, now you've burned a play. Like, for the first time, he's kind of talking this year like there's only so many good plays. Remember the Eric Eager, Andy called the good plays? There's only so many of them. And he's kind of, I think, this year more than ever before admitted, I've only got so many of those, right? And, I think it's clear that he didn't have the magic bullet for that one, right?
Well,
or he would have called it.
And it's also part of the bigger factor here is when you can't run the ball consistently, you refuse to run it consistently, you take away your options in those moments. You become a lot more likely. That's why they threw the ball widely in that situation, because, okay, we have never used this before, but teams see these guys all the time what they run, and they know what their trends are in these situations. So after a while, if you're getting in these situations, do you want to use that play call at the 44? You want to use it at the 5-yard line?
Well, Sam referenced one of these plays earlier today, and your point about it being a short week may be the answer to this. But on a 26 to go, they ran 4 button hooks.
On second. I actually think that's even a bigger thing, Soren, than the 4th down decision itself. Is the spots leading up to the fourth downs, they were terrible in. Like, there was a reason it got to be fourth down, and a reason that they got to be on the plus side of the field, yet they're still punting. I mean, they get a 1st and 20, 2nd and 25. They run 4 button hooks on a second down there. Then they throw behind the line of scrimmage on 3rd and 26. They get 11 yards. So again, I'm thinking they must believe that Harrison Butker can kick from 60 to 62 today. And so they punt it. It's like, what was the point of the 11-yard play? Like, that play worked as well as you could have expected. You wind up shortening the field for a guy who struggles with a short field to punt. Why not throw a Hail Mary? Why not try to get a flag? Why not try to do literally anything that has the possibility, even if it's a 1% possibility of success? Because that play didn't do it. It didn't have that possibility.
Well, it also told me that his trust in Butker is not what it used to be. Because I think
100%.
that's what I thought was, you're going to crack a field goal here. Because if that's Brandon Aubrey, they're trying him out with 10 more yards pushed back. Right?
100%.
They feel like he can hit a 70-yarder. And so that to me was the more revealing thing.
We've hinted at McDuffie. McDuffie and Watson were worked over in this game, particularly Trent McDuffie, the likes we have not seen, at least for a long time. I couldn't remember a game that looked like this. And I'll even throw in the fact that for the second straight week, they had 0 sacks. Like we always talk about pass rush and coverage go hand in hand. But just a bad day for McDuffie and Watson, Sam, or is this like a blueprint that's going to be followed here moving forward?
Yeah, I think there's enough of a foundation with these guys, especially McDuffie, but Watson too, to say that they had a bad day. I mean, let's be honest, like CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, and Lamb in particular, have made a lot more cornerbacks than Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson look bad. But the Chiefs like to press. The Chiefs like to play physical. And this, to me, had a feeling of the best strategy against a bully is to go punch the bully in the mouth. And the Cowboys receivers were physical. I did think that the referees allowed those receivers to play a little bit more physical, but it's a great idea, Soren, to put these things, to package this pass rush question and this together, because the Chiefs blitzed on half the downs in this game. Their strategy was to leave these guys isolated. Their blitz rate was the second highest of any team in the NFL last week. Their pressure rate was 20th. Their time to pressure, the amount of time it took them to get a pressure, was 18th in the league. You leave any cornerbacks isolated that long against those two guys, one-on-one, it's not going to be a recipe for success. And so I think absolutely that the lack of pass rush plays into the bad days these guys had. Also thinking that these guys didn't have good days on their own either.
Yeah, bad day for sure, Jeff, but we're going to see more of this?
It depends on who's on the other side of the field. I do agree that CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens are a different beast. I used to argue this all the time when they would see Jamar Chase and T. Higgins would be hurt. People say, Trent McDuffie just shut down Jamar Chase. I'm like, because they're doubling him. There's no one else on their side to give you a problem. When you got two guys, it becomes a problem. Now you can't hide. And so you're not going to see those guys every week. But, big receivers have always given Trent McDuffie problems. And that's no secret. I think Cortland Sutton is always been a handful for him. And so anybody who's 6'2", 6'3", and up, A.J. Brown, guys like that, they're going to be able to push him around a little bit, 50-50 ball him. And if they can run, then it's a whole different animal, like a George Pickens can. But, the bigger thing here is just that there are a lot of issues with this defense. It amazes me how much people talk about this defense. It's like, and points do matter the most when it comes to playing defense. They're, points per game average. They're 29th in 3rd and 7s, third and long situation in the league, 29th getting people off the field. They're 26th overall on third down defense. They're 26th, I think, in sacks. Their pressure rate when they blitz is one of the worst in the leagues. They're one of the worst teams in the league in committing and creating turnovers. I mean, up and down the line, this defense is filled with all kinds of holes. And so when you ask your DBs to play in those situations and play a lot of man coverage, they're going to get exploited sooner or later. I don't think that you're going to see it over and over and over again to the extent that you saw it this past week. But I certainly believe, a Nico Collins is probably licking his chops right now. I imagine that the Broncos feel pretty good about Bo Nix in that matchup again. Any team they face that can throw the football and has weapons is going to feel good about it because they know they're not going to have their quarterback face any kind of duress throughout most of the game.
Yeah. That 3rd and long, I'm looking up in real time as Jeff's talking. I mean, That's a hell of a stat. I mean, they
At 29th.
well, their EPA, their expected points added per drop back on 3rd and long is 30th in the league, ahead of only the Cowboys, ironically enough, and the Panthers. I mean,
That means your pass rush is not getting home.
Yeah.
Yes.
It does, yeah. Because, I mean, their secondary is good enough. I mean, none of us are going to say they have a top 5 secondary. Their secondary is good enough. Trey McDuffie is going to get paid. Jalen Watson's going to get paid. And this is from other teams looking and saying that's the market for those guys. Whoever winds up signing them, like you don't sign them just because you like them. You sign them because there's these other teams like them too. Like it's a pass rush problem primarily.
Cherry on top. We've left it for all the fans who have been complaining about it, Jeff. The officiating. How much of this game came down to the officiating? How much of a bad whistle did the Chiefs get? We heard Andy Reid say, "Listen, I'm not saying I agree with all the calls. I'm not saying I agree with even most of the calls," which is about as critical as we've seen him get, which I think is another sign that they not believing in their ability to do it on their own. Like, I think he doesn't say that because he always feels like doesn't matter what goes on, we have to overcome it. And now he's kind of grabbing at straws, is what I hear in that statement. But what did you think of how much the officiating played a role in this game?
I didn't think it was a huge role at all. I know they got some calls that could be disputed. I know the offensive pass interference on Worthy was a tough break. And look, when you grab and hold as much as they grab and hold, playing corner and playing defensive back, if you get a team that an officiating team that is going to be a lot more conservative with that stuff, you're going to get called for it. And if you are getting a crew that's less likely to call it, you'll get away with it. But they've been handsy forever. So that to me is not a big deal. But I challenge people to say, okay, what was the play that was going to turn the game for them that the officials called? What was the penalty that really blew it for them? And there wasn't one. What killed it for them was people should talk more about Chris Jones jumping out of a gap and letting an unknown running back run 40 yards for a touchdown. You should talk more about Rashee Rice dropping a 3rd down pass in a critical situation in the 4th quarter where you're trying to win the game, or Xavier Worthy not knowing how to get in the end zone when he's wide open and catches the ball in the middle of the field with nobody around him, or whatever, Jawan Taylor's holding penalties or whatever. There was a million things that happened over the course of the game. And so when people start talking about that kind of stuff, that's when you know you're grabbing at straws and you don't want to admit the most obvious thing we said at the start of the show, which is this team isn't as good as we thought it was. And that's as simple as that.
The officiating role was what in your mind, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I thought they had a role in the game. I mean, in this game, not this season, in this game. I mean, there are 2 key plays to me, and neither one of them are the handsiness of the defensive backs. I mean, the holding call on Josh Simmons is terrible. And that should have been 1st and 10, I think, at the 28-yard line. Instead, that's the 3rd and 26 play that I'm talking about. That winds up being a punt. That's 3 to 7 points. The OPI is 3 to 7 points. That's a 1st down at the 30-yard line. Instead, they're backed up. They end up punting instead. Like, those are 2 instances where they got zeros. I think they would have gotten at least 3 and maybe 7. But I think the focus on this, because I do think they did not get a favorable whistle in this game. I think there's other games where they have gotten a favorable whistle in that game and within a game. And I think it's taken away from the real story of penalties, which is they commit far too many of them. And that's the reason I was looking up how many times Andy Reid said clean it up in response to penalties. Like, and I know people are tired of hearing him say it. They should be more tired of the fact that it's true. Yes. This is something that they need to clean up. They have the most holding calls of any team in the NFL. And so I went through and said, okay, what do they do in their losses? They've committed 12 holding calls in the 6 games they've accepted holding calls in the 6 losses they've had this season. If you go through it, so normally the Chiefs, when they have 1st and 10, they convert that to a new set of downs at some point on 1st, 2nd, or 3rd down, or a touchdown 79% of the time. 2nd best rate in the league. Go from 1st and 10 to convert a new set of downs. On those 12 holding calls that they've had this year, they convert to a new set of downs half that time, 40% of the time, from 79 to 40. So when you average that out on 12 punts, on 12 possessions, normally if you're converting at 80%, that's about 10 times of those 12 that you're getting a new set of downs. In these situations, they only got 5. And so, or 2 in those, 5. So that's an extra like 5 punts that they've had to make. That's an extra 5 possessions you've taken away from your team. I certainly don't have to remind everyone they've lost all their games by 1 possession. They've taken away 5 possessions from themselves by these holding calls. And so, like I said, I know people are tired of hearing Andy Reid say, got to clean it up. This is something they need to clean up. And that's the part, it's the stuff that's in their control. Is there's this other conversation about the part that's out of their control about whether it's legitimate or not. Most of these end up being legitimate all year long, and they're costing themselves points.
I think there's you build the reputation and now you're stuck with it, right? Like that's part of it.
Yeah.
They're looking to call a hold. And so when the arm gets up around the neck, even though I think it shouldn't have been a hold on Simmons, they're going to call it because this is a team that gets called all the time. I mean, they do their homework and they scout the teams that they're going to be officiating for as well. And when they look through the numbers, like, oh my God, look at all these holdings. Like it goes into their head. This is a team that holds a lot. Just like Andy Reid tells his team, you've got Carl Cheffer's crew. You got to remember the other. There's one crew that has more flags. I think was it the Washington game? That was just a flag fest. I can't remember which crew it is. And he tells this is what they do.
The Denver game.
Game. Yeah, the Denver game. Exactly. That was it. And it's like this crew, this is what it is. Or this crew calls a ton of PIs or defensive holds. So we got to nail it on this. You scout the officials. You know what it is. You know what they call. The officials scout you. They know what you do wrong.
And Juwan Taylor leads the NFL in penalties. To your point.
Year after year, not just this year. He's a regular.
Yes, and every crew has to be aware that the Chiefs tackles alone have committed 13 holding penalties.
Brought it on themselves.
How he can be lining up in an illegal formation at this stage of his career with his team is beyond. It's like he's like Irving Fryer playing wingback in the Nebraska offense, like where he lines up sometime. Like if you're not Patrick Mahomes saying is how could you trace, but how could you not someone say, hey, dude, man, move up? They're calling on you. But that goes back to what you're saying. That nobody wants to say it. Nobody wants to hold him accountable, so he keeps doing it.
And I will say, this is not a one-year problem. This is a team that in 2018 led the NFL in penalties. But what was different about 2018? They were explosive. They had a chance to get 20 yards back in a way that Jeff talked about this. Like this is a team that has to stay on schedule offensively to move the ball. They don't hit a bunch of explosive plays the way they used to, but when you develop those habits over the time, decide that holding is better than a sack, even though you have a quarterback who avoids sacks at a pretty high rate, it just becomes a thing. And now it's a thing when your offense isn't good enough to overcome it.
Yeah, the easiest way to put it is, did the officials have a good day? No. Did they cost the Chiefs? Yes. Was it the officials' fault? No, it's the Chiefs' fault. Like they've built the reputation to get a lot of flags, and you reap what you sow, and that's where they are right now. We'll see how they do against the Texans. We'll break that down Friday morning at 10 a.m. here on the Red, Gold, and Bold. Remember, we're always brought to you by our great friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, locally owned and operated, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. If you own or manage a business, need anything done with your parking lot, Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. And our friends at Frontier Justice and Lee Summit Mo, KCK, Jenks, Oklahoma. Whether you're new to shooting or a seasoned pro, you'll find expert staff, top-tier gear, and a strong sense of community. A premier indoor shooting range and training all under one roof. You can find it at Frontier Justice. They're online at frontier-justice.com. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network and NFL.com, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold.